Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine the scene. June 10th, 2025. Bukit Jalil National Stadium is buzzing.
Yeah.
It's Malaysia, Harimau Malaya, facing off against regional powerhouses Vietnam in an AFC Asian Cup qualifier. Now, for over a decade, this fixture had felt like, well, a sporting Groundhog Day for Malaysian fans,
Uh-huh.
an 11-year winless streak against this opponent. You sort of braced yourself, didn't you?
Absolutely. It was a narrative, deeply etched in recent history, a predictable hurdle that seemed almost insurmountable against Vietnam specifically.
Exactly. But on this night, everything changed. Harimau Malaya didn't just break the jinx, they shattered it. A dominant, utterly convincing 4-0 thrashing. It was pure euphoria, a performance so complete it felt like a cheeky rewrite of regional footballing history right before our eyes.
It wasn't just the win, it was how they won, wasn't it? That scale of victory felt like a seismic shift.
And that brings us right to the heart of our deep dive today. We're cracking open a paper that critically examines this specific victory. It asks the big question: does this historic triumph signal a genuine new era for Malaysian football? Or was it, as the source cautiously puts it, just a really, really good night at the office?
Right. A crucial distinction.
So our mission is to unpack the anatomy of this win, looking at the key factors this analysis identifies.
And the source material wastes no time, starting with the man pulling the strings, so to speak.
Right. So where does it begin? It zeroes in right away on head coach Peter Cklamovski.
Huh?
He's the Australian tactician who arrived with a reputation for bold ideas and, as the source wonderfully puts it, an apparent disdain for the mundane.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah, it's a fascinating contrast to some predecessors who were perhaps a bit more pragmatic, more defensive-minded.
Cklamovski seems to have looked at the squad and thought, let's be adventurous. His core philosophy, according to the source, emphasizes a strong team mentality,
Okay.
actively avoiding building around a single one-man team. He even highlighted his players' commitment post-match as validation for his training methods, suggesting, buy-in was key.
And the tactical shift he implemented was pretty dramatic, wasn't it? The adoption of the 3-4-3 formation. I remember that being met with a mix of intrigue and trepidation initially. People wondered if Malaysia had the personnel to handle such an attacking setup.
Well, the Vietnam match provided the resounding answer. The source details how the 3-4-3 worked it, created attacking overloads that Vietnam just struggled to cope with.
Right.
You saw it with players like Arif Aiman Hanapi operating as an inverted winger.
Ah, inverted winger. Maybe quickly explain that for anyone not deep into tactics.
Sure. So it means he's a winger playing on the opposite side from his stronger foot, typically. So he cuts inside more towards the center, rather than just going down the line to cross.
Gotcha. Linking up play more.
Exactly. And the source highlights that freedom, allowing him to link up centrally. Plus, wingbacks like Dion Cools weren't just hugging the touchline defensively.
No.
They used their pace and physicality to charge forward, significantly contributing to the attack. This really underscores what the source calls the Cklamovski effect.
It felt like swapping cautious nudges for a full-throttle, hold-my-take charge, as the source's analogy suggests.
Yeah.
It certainly seemed to catch Vietnam off guard on that night.
Definitely. But beyond the tactics on the field, the source points to another huge element in this victory, the players themselves, specifically the impact of heritage players.
Oh, yes?
This is described as perhaps the most potent and definitely the most debated element in the team's recent ascent.
It really is a hot topic, isn't it? And their impact in that 4-0 win. Undeniable, based on the source.
Absolutely. The goals came from newly cleared heritage players João Figueiredo and Rodrigo Holgado, right alongside contributions from established ones like Corbinong and Dion Cools.
And there's recent context here too, right?
Yeah, the source mentions FIFA just cleared 5 additional foreign-born players. This, the paper argues, has irrevocably altered the complexion of the national squad.
Wow.
It's like crafting a footballing equivalent of a family reunion, they joke.
Which brings us squarely to the heart of the debate the source lays out. On one side, you have the concern, voiced by seasoned observer Datuk Richard Scully. He worries that without meticulous planning, bringing in heritage players could sideline local talents and hinder their development.
Right.
The argument being, these players are brought into play not to warm the bench, potentially reducing opportunities for indigenous talent.
Right. A valid concern about the long-term health of the domestic game, the pipeline. But then, as the source notes, Youth and Sports Minister Hannah Yeoh champions their inclusion.
Okay, the counter-argument.
Yeah, she argues heritage players have blood ties to Malaysians, are fully eligible, and can demonstrably strengthen the national team. Her view is basically that it's a pragmatic and essential measure if the goal is to elevate Malaysian football internationally.
So given the 4-0 result against a tough opponent like Vietnam, does the source feel that outcome itself provides compelling evidence for the pro-heritage camp, at least in the short term?
It absolutely notes that the Vietnam victory offers compelling evidence. No doubt. However, it quickly pivots to a critical question.
Okay.
How can Malaysian football leverage this short-term boost without inadvertently stunting the long-term growth of its local talent pool?
The balance.
Exactly. The source emphasizes this requires a robust, integrated development framework beyond just successful qualifying campaigns. It raises an important question about sustainability.
That makes sense. It's not just about the quick fix, is it? Shifting gears slightly, the source highlights another influential figure, Tunku Ismail Sultan Ibrahim, or TMJ, the Regent of Johor.
Ah, TMJ.
He's called a towering, often controversial presence, whose influence extends from his dominant JDT club right into the national team setup.
And his direct involvement before the Vietnam match is specifically highlighted in the source, isn't it?
It is. A closed-door motivational speech to the squad was apparently seen as a key inspirational factor. It suggests, as the source dryly puts it, a royal pep talk delivered with the blunt force of a well-placed tackle. Might have been just the catalyst needed.
Yeah. Who am I to Tarek? And listen up. Indeed.
Pretty much. TMJ is also a very vocal advocate for the naturalization program and foreign expertise. The source notes he often engages in public sparring with critics he perceives as having a backward mentality.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from that. His pronouncements are delivered with the directness of a well-struck free kick, emphasizing a new level and revolution.
Right.
The source points out his focus on systematic development, infrastructure, and fostering a winning mindset. What's fascinating here is his quote regarding the criticism he faces. They can't attack me directly, so instead they criticize Johor Darul Tazim, JDT, the M-League, and the national team.
It's clear he's a force. And while his methods provoke debate, as the source acknowledges, his commitment is clear and, well, the results, at least on this one historic night, speak for themselves.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source insists it would be academically irresponsible, and indeed rather naive, to look only at the national team's success and ignore some deeper structural issues.
Ah, right. The foundation beneath the penthouse. The source shifts focus to the domestic game, the M-League.
Yeah.
Which it identifies as the very bedrock of local talent production.
And it describes the M-League as being in need of a serious intervention. Reports cited highlight pervasive financial instability, chronic salary arrears, and an alarming lack of long-term grassroots development plans among many clubs.
That statistic mentioned about some clubs being forced to withdraw from the league due to financial woes, that's just shocking.
It is. It creates a stark contrast, doesn't it? You've got a national team soaring on tactical innovation and imported talent, while its domestic feeder system, the place where future national players are supposed to be developed, struggles with these really fundamental issues.
The source's analogy really nails it. The national team is a beautifully decorated penthouse built on a somewhat crumbling foundation.
Exactly. And local analyst Datuk Dr. Pikan Romley's perspective is included. He suggests licenses for clubs should be based on genuine capacity, not mere formality, and calls for independent audits for transparency to tackle the financial chaos.
So there are potential frameworks. The Asian Work Plan on Sports 2021-2025 is mentioned as a blueprint for things like capacity development and integrity, but
the source notes its successful implementation at the domestic club level remains a significant challenge.
Right.
So the victory happened, showcasing tactical smarts and talent injection, influenced by strong figures. But the source makes it really clear the underlying system faces considerable hurdles that aren't fixed by just one big win.
Okay, circling back then. That 4-0 victory over Vietnam was undoubtedly more than just 3 points. It was a psychological victory, a statement of intent, a powerful symbol of potential.
Definitely.
It showed Cklamovski's tactics worked, the heritage players had an impact, and figures like TMJ are influential motivators.
And practically speaking, this win has all but sealed qualification for the 2027 Asian Cup, offering a real tantalizing glimpse of Malaysian football potentially challenging beyond the immediate region more consistently.
But to unequivocally declare this a definitive new era, the source argues that would be succumbing to the intoxicating euphoria of the moment.
Yeah.
It reminds us, using that classic proverb, a single swallow, no matter how majestic, does not a summer make.
The major hurdle remains those structural deficiencies within the M-League. The financial instability, the need for better grassroots development, the governance issues highlighted.
So, based on this deep dive into the source, the real takeaway here seems to be that while Cklamovski's tactics and the heritage players deliver the spark for that spectacular night, the long-term fire depends entirely on fixing the systemic issues the source highlights in the M-League. It's a story less about heroes just on the pitch, and maybe more about getting the foundation right off it.
Yeah. Exactly right. For this to be a true, lasting new era, the FAM and MFL, the governing bodies mentioned in the source, need to translate this national team success into a comprehensive, long-term strategy for domestic football.
It requires more than just financial injections, too.
Oh, yeah. The source stresses it needs a fundamental paradigm shift in governance, youth development, and club professionalism. It's a big task.
The source frames the 4-0 victory as a spectacular dawn full of hope and possibility, which is nice.
It is.
But whether it blossoms into a full, bright, and sustained new era depends not just on the roar of the Tigers on the pitch, but on the meticulous and often unglamorous work of laying down solid foundations off it.
Well said. Only then, the source concludes, can Malaysia be a consistent force, not just a fleeting sensation.
It leaves us with a lot to think about, really.
It certainly does.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for you and for the future of Malaysian football? Considering everything we've just unpacked from the source, what do you think is the single most important thing Malaysian football needs to do now to ensure this potential translates into sustained success?